welcome. I'm really grateful that you guys take some time out of your afternoon and your early evening to join us to talk about virtual and augmented reality and how these tools can help individuals and organizations continue to communicate and collaborate and work together despite the physical distancing that we are all experiencing. We've got some great presenters who will be speaking to us shortly. Two really amazing Alberta-based XR companies talking about their platforms and how they see these tools in helping organizations. We're going to talk, we'll just take a little look at the agenda here. There we go. So for the first little bit here, for the first half hour, we're going to kind of have an open Q&A session to kind of facilitate any questions, any burning thoughts that you guys may have had about XR in general, or anything around the industry in Alberta. And it doesn't have to be around collaboration tools. It can be, but it can be anything that you guys have an interest with. I'll start off by introducing myself. My name is Mike McCready. I'm the Alberta Chapter President for the VR Association in Alberta here. And shortly when we get past the Q&A, I'll introduce the rest of the board who are with us today and who have helped make this event come together here. So like I said, we're going to start with the first half hour talking about some Q&A about different topics related to VR and AR. Then we'll talk a little about the VR Association and the chapter in Alberta. Then we'll take a look at a message from a representative from Alberta Innovates talking about XR in Alberta and their kind of thoughts about that. Then we've got two of our great presenters. ScopeAR will be talking about their WorkLink platform for 20 minutes. And then we've got Ice Edge Business Solutions talking about their ICE design tool for collaboration. We'll have a final wrap up with some Q&A. And at the very end, we'll have some door prizes that we'll give away, some really great tools and prizes here. So we're going to start off kicking off with some questions here. I know we did put out a call and we did get some questions emailed in, and feel free, if you have a question as well, to either unmute yourself because everyone's muted by default and you can ask your question, or you can type it in the text chat in Zoom, and we've got some moderators who will be monitoring those. And what we'll do also with this Q&A, because we want this to be not just a couple people talking to you guys, we want to have a conversation. So with any particular questions, if you've got some insights to add to that or anything to add to that, feel free to unmute yourself and participate. So Val, do we have a first question we want to take care of that was in the chat or from the email?
Yeah, we do. So for anyone who doesn't know, my name is Valerie Dufour. I am the marketing chair of Verara, so I'll be moderating the chat. Anything that you post inside of the Zoom group chat, me and my colleague Lynn will be able to go through it, and then we will get through your questions as they show up. So our first question is, let me just pull this up. Do you believe the process to collaborate in VR needs to be streamlined in order to be utilized more?
That's a great question. I believe it came in from Michael Ward. I believe he's in Edmonton. Hi, Michael, if you're watching yet. Hi, welcome. And I'll start off with a thought, and then I really would love to hear from those who are participating on the Zoom call today. I think that's one of the just challenges in general of virtual reality is kind of that friction of getting that headset on, whether that friction is related to system setup on your computer or just the actual getting the hardware kind of ready and good to go. You're right, Michael. It's not quite there as far as it is like with a Zoom call, the push of a button, you're connected, or a Skype call. And I think that it does need to have that in place for mass adoption. I'd love to hear from those on the call today what their thoughts are, or some ways that maybe as a community we can help solve this issue or encourage innovation and being able to resolve this issue and have more people be able to adopt this VR technology, whether it's for collaboration or any process. So if anyone has any thoughts that they want to add to that, just feel free to unmute yourself, and we'd love to hear and introduce who you are before you kind of respond to that question.
Mike, I could jump in on this one. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, cool. That's like the common question now in any of these conferencing things. It's the first thing everyone asks. Can you hear me, right?
Yeah.
My name's Tyler. I'm a VR instructor at Lethbridge College. I'm also a VR artist and storyteller, so I work with a lot of these technologies, and I've been spending a lot of time both in video conferences and in virtual reality conferencing in the last 6 months. We did one of our major events this year with our students in AltSpace using virtual reality to do presentations and networking. I think one of the big things that is going to help grow the use of virtual reality is understanding sort of like the different ways that you would use it or the times that you would use it. You know, you think about a one-to-many delivery situation. Something like Zoom or even like any sort of the video conferencing or web conferencing works really well when you've got a one-to-many, right? When you've got an environment where people want to network sort of naturally, that's where the VR technology really works well. When you've got something like AltSpace or Verbella or those kinds of platforms where you can move around a space and you can have a conversation. Right now, we can't all start to have individual conversations with each other. Like I can't have a conversation with Mike separate from, you know, 2 or 3 other people having their own conversation in this environment without using something like a breakout room. And then how do you know when you're going to move back to the main room, or how do you go and leave that conversation and join another conversation? So when you're trying to mimic that natural conversational environment that you would have at like an event, that's where VR really works really well, because you've got that space. There's that spatial dimension to it where you can move to somewhere in that environment and have that conversation, right? So it really depends on the context of how you want to use it. Like for teaching, this works really well, right? Zoom or something like that works really well because you've kind of got like a one-to-many delivery, and then the conversation tends to be sort of everybody talking about the same thing in the same area. But if you're trying to do a bigger event with networking, VR tends to work a little bit better. And so the more people understand that, that's going to help them choose the different tools and want to try the different tools, right? So if you've been using Zoom during the pandemic or Teams or that sort of thing, and you're finding the limitations are, well, you know, it's great, you know, when we're having conversations, but I can't see anybody's like cues to see who wants to speak next, or I can't like break off and talk with other people. Then it's like, oh, well, now's the time to try something like AltSpace or Verbella or Engage, where you can have that spatial dimension.
Awesome. Sorry, I was having some challenges trying to operate the mouse through my VR controllers. That's a really good insight. Thanks for sharing that. One thing before we maybe follow up with any other kind of comments to this question is a couple things. One, encourage everyone, if they're not responding or asking a question, to keep themselves muted, just to avoid any echoing or any other sounds that may come around in your environment. Anyone else want to add to the question from Michael about the friction or the need for the lack of friction to be able to adopt VR technology, whether it's from collaboration perspective or another perspective?
I did have one note on that. I'm Ethan. I'm actually one of the students at the Lethbridge College in the VR program. The event that Tyler mentioned earlier, I was part of it. And one of the things that I found really useful about that was that when you look around, like besides the fact that people, like we had organized ourselves to have a specific costume, like a shirt and pants, so we could tell who was part of the shenanigans and who was visiting. But one of the things I found really useful is that I could tell who was like part of the group, like doing things. But beyond that, it was just people. Like it wasn't a matter of, you could visually identify, oh, that person's important because they're part of this, this, and this. You actually had to engage with people and kind of break that ice before you kind of figured that out. And I found it very useful for kind of just like actually having that conversation, because you're all literally just the same people. Like there's all kinds, like there's the variation of the avatars, of course, but at the same time, there's just something about that. I guess there's just enough of a distance in VR space that you don't have to worry about. There's a lot less to worry about because you can just start your conversation or even have it there. And then by the time you've already broken that ice and you're kind of comfortable, you already know who that person is. I found that very, very helpful in actually interacting with professionals of the industry, because I've been to conventions and things before, and I always have all kinds of nervousness about actually talking to people because I know, you're the person in charge of this. This is a big deal. Whereas in AltSpace there, I discovered that halfway through the conversation, and then we're in the conversation is all good. So, and then on the topic of the like streamlines the conversation, and also just but at the same time setting up the programming can be interesting. But I find it's very useful for that, especially for people entering the environment.
I think it's a really interesting idea about how VR actually removes some of the social friction. I think that all these distancing tools sort of remove some of that social friction. I was in a session last week with Kent Bai, and normally if I was in like a room with Kent Bai, I might be a little bit nervous because, you know, he's quite popular. But in the Zoom's conference, it's just like, oh yeah, you're just having this casual conversation with these people, and they're thousands of kilometers away from us, and they're, you know, doing this and that, and they're, you know, this person or that person important, kind of like you're saying, right? Where so that VR tends to remove some of that social friction, making you feel maybe more confident. I know we had one student that was like super nervous about ever talking in front of groups of people, and he did his presentation like you would have never known that that he had like social anxiety and didn't like talking in front of people. And so like the VR facilitated and removed some of that friction once you remove the technological friction of getting people into VR to begin with.
Yeah, that's an interesting point there. And, you know, it definitely, I think, can remove a lot of these social frictions that we may encounter in real life. And I think it's just going to take, you know, all of us who are either enthusiasts or developers or fans of the technology to really act as advocates for the technology, and the more people that are exposed to it and learn the potential, they will start to realize that the hardware frictions might not be as, you know, of an issue, and they start to realize the benefits from like the social side and whatnot. One thing also I want to mention before we continue to the questions, we've got about 20 minutes before we kick into the official agenda. We are recording this, and so that we can make it available for those who can't stay for the whole event or who couldn't make it. So just be aware that it is being recorded, and we will be posting this online. So if that has a concern, you know, maybe you can just ask text chats if you don't want to have your video on the screen. Looks like there are some text chats with some questions potentially. Val, do you want to take a look? Do we have any either follow-ups to that question or any other questions that maybe we can take a look at?
Yeah, so there is a follow-up question. Sean DeWitt's asking, are there any security concerns with AltSpace? For example, Alberta Innovates has decided that they can't use Zoom for computers for security reasons. So do you think that there are any barriers regarding security within VR?
That's a great question. And I would probably put a kind of a initial statement that yes. I mean, anytime you're using any platform, whether it's VR or not VR, that is cloud hosted, and, you know, things like Verbella and Engage and Roomy and AltSpace, they're cloud hosted. I mean, you have your local app, but the environments where you participate in, you know, are on the cloud. So I would say, you know, definitely there is potential for risk there. I don't know how each platform manages their security protocols for their different access to their servers. I think that would warrant some kind of research on that side. For good or for bad, AltSpace is owned by Microsoft, so they are not an indie startup. So they were an indie, but they were bought a few years ago by Microsoft. So, you know, hopefully there could be, you know, some confidence in the sense that at least they are putting some effort into security because they're not an indie. I mean, I can't speak for them. So that's a kind of a generic statement that I think, you know, there are definitely concerns because all this information is hosted on the cloud. It would be similar to, you know, participating on Twitter or on LinkedIn or other platforms where there is information put online and you can't control what people do with it. Anyone want to add to that question from Sean DeWitt?
So I've been doing a lot of work with AltSpace. We have a current project in our industry integration where we're using AltSpace with another group to do a large event. It really was important to look at the end user license agreement for AltSpace. Within their agreement, they have rules that anything that you do in AltSpace, they can record and they can use for marketing purposes or pretty much anything they want. in perpetuity throughout the universe forever. And so when you're talking about security, I mean, there's security risks that come with any cloud-based system, with storing data anywhere but on your own computer. But then there's also that side of it, which is, you know, what is that system? Let me back up. What are you trading in order to use that system? What data are you giving them in order for you to use that system? Because bearing in mind that AltSpace is free. There is no pay model for AltSpace. There are pay models for some of these other platforms, but a lot of these platforms right now are free. And so they've ultimately, though, got some sort of monetization structure that they're working from, whether that's, you know, using user data, using metadata about users for analysis, for trend analysis, you know, like, so it bears close scrutiny to look at, you know, like you need to look at the end user license agreements, because I think that's a second part of that security question, which is, it's not just who could like maliciously get my data, but who am I giving my data to by using this system? And so with AltSpace, you're giving your data. Now, you're not transferring any IP to them. You retain ownership of anything you create and put into AltSpace, you retain ownership of, but you grant them a license to use it however they want. So those types of things are really important to know before you do something like an event in AltSpace, where they could record something that happens in that event, and they can use that recording and that information to do whatever they choose to do with it. And you're granting that license by using their system. So that's an important thing to look into. That's just one system.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that. It's a really good point. So again, it's similar to other online tools that there often is a pay-to-play model, but it's not usually with currency. It's with information. Any follow-ups to that question? Or
Yeah.
it looks like we've got quite a few in the text chat, which is great. So Val, do you want to just kind of fire away?
Yeah, for sure. So we do have a question about how you're currently porting yourself in from VR into the Zoom conference now. What is the software that you're currently using there, Mike?
Awesome. And I was going to talk about it, so I'm glad it's kind of brought up. So this is a platform called Spaces VR, and it's an interesting story behind them. They were originally pre-COVID-19 a location-based entertainment company, and because of the pandemic, they had to adjust their business model a bit and look at other ways. So they developed this platform, and when they first rolled it out, I think it was Tyler who introduced it to me. It was free. And there still is a free version, but now there's a paid version that has additional features like customizations, higher fidelity of the screen casting, those kind of things, customizations of the avatar. And so the way that it works is I'm basically in VR and they used Unity to build it as a back end. And a lot of the interactions that you can see, or you can't see, but I see, if anyone ever developed a Steam VR, it's the Steam VR hands and the teleportation Steam VR. So a lot of it's just kind of the canned features within that SDK. But it's a pretty powerful system where I can have screen share and I can have like custom cameras that I can have and all that. And so I'm in VR, and then with Zoom and any actually video conference, so Skype, Google Meetings, that has the ability to select the source for your camera. You just basically select, it'll show up as a Unity cam in the camera. So I could actually switch to my web camera on my laptop, but then you'd see me in my shorts, and I don't want to do that. But yeah, so it's called Spaces VR, and there is a free version that if you want to try it out right now.
All right, and we have another question regarding headset resolution, dealing with text, collaborating. Is there anything around VR fatigue that you've experienced, Mike?
Yes, a little bit. So I think the longest time that I was in VR was when Tyler mentioned our event we put on for the students at the college. And I think it was 2 or 3 hours at one time in VR. And obviously I took my headset off a few times. But after that, I was feeling quite fatigued. And I probably will after today, because I'm going to be in VR the whole time, even though you guys are in Zoom. And more so, not as much for me eye strain, but more so just kind of from the sheer weight of the headset. Because I mean, that's again, some of the other downsides is, I'm in an Oculus Rift S right now, and it's got quite a weight to it, and that just kind of wears on you. As far as the question of text in VR, I mean, that's kind of one of the ongoing challenges, is that, you know, the optical character kind of resolution isn't always ideal in VR. And so one of the best practices just in general with VR is to have minimal text and make your text large, or your font size large for legibility. So I think from a collaboration perspective, you wouldn't want to be looking at spreadsheets in VR as a team, for example. It's more so, I think, where some of its strengths are really are in the collaboration through whiteboards. So, because, for example, I'm just going to grab this camera here, and so I've got a whiteboard over here, and I can actually draw on this right now. So I think some of the strengths are not so much looking at a lot of text, but looking at using the tools as a chance for collaboration. One quick question. I should have checked this at the beginning. Does that look like it's backwards to you?
No, looks
Nope.
good.
Okay, good. I wasn't sure if I had to reverse my camera. Anyway, so I hope that answered the question. I mean, there is definitely risk of fatigue and resolution. There are different headsets that have high resolution. Like I think one of the highest ones, and of course, I think it's out of everyone's kind of price range, is the Varo. I don't know what the resolution is exactly, but it's probably one of the highest resolution devices.
And I mean, the question about, you know, text and collaboration, it kind of relates back to that question of, you know, best uses for the medium. We almost have to, as VR users and evangelists, start to reimagine how we use virtual reality spaces to collaborate. And so, you know, when you're talking about, Mike, you're talking about, you know, you can whiteboard, and it'd be great to have something where you could draw in the air, or like just conjure objects and primitives and like cobble together loose models to communicate ideas spatially. That's what VR is good for. You suddenly have that spatial dimension that you have access to. Like, we can leverage that if we wrap our minds around a different way of communicating than what we're used to. We're used to 2D screens, which are really good for text. We're used to books and newspaper and video. And so that kind of paradigm is what we go with when we do collaboration. But when you start to get into these spatial computing, right? So whether it's AR, VR, XR, MR, you know, whatever, we need to use that space, and that's a different kind of communication. And I mean, I'm doing it right now. I'm talking with my hands, right? And that's, yeah, Mike, exactly. Like, you're doing it too. And so it's like adding that spatial dimension, that visual dimension to our collaboration and communication. That's one of the areas to kind of look forward to in virtual reality, where, you know, the sort of legacy, it's weird to say the legacy form of collaboration, which is being very text heavy, right? Is sort of an old way of doing things. Not that it's a bad way of doing things, and not that it's a way of doing things that will go away. It's just, let's leverage what is the best about virtual environment or spatial computing, and that's, you know, adding things into it that are spatial that we can use to communicate with.
We have another question. So people are wondering, what is it that people will typically use in terms of communication then in virtual reality? So there's alt space, for example, but has anybody ever given any thought around using maybe like a recreational type of game for that kind of communication, say No Man's Sky, maybe Google Tilt Brush for that kind of free form? Do they host those same kind of multiplayers, and whether or not, what is the viability of it?
Well, I mean, I've heard of experiences of companies actually having some of their meetings in Rec Room, even, right? You know, not for those who haven't experienced Rec Room, it's really just as the name implies, a place where there's lots of different recreation games, but it's multi-user. Tilt Brush is an example. I don't know if Tilt Brush has multi-user capabilities, but one tool that we were looking at, Masterpiece VR, does have, where you could actually be, and this is something that we want to demonstrate at some workshops in the future, where you could be in a room with 10 people and be able to not just whiteboard, but as Tyler was alluding to, be able to create. So imagine being able to sketch out some plans for a product you want to create, and doing it collaboratively in that space. So I definitely think there are a lot of platforms besides your traditional alt space and Engage that you could use for that collaboration. And pretty much anywhere where there's multi-user capabilities, I think you'll find some of that happening. Where you might run into some challenges is you know, in some of the moderation abilities that some of these platforms have or don't have. Another tool that you guys may want to, it's free, and I think it runs on the Quest and the Rift and different platforms, it's called Half Plus Half. And it's made by a company called Normal, and they actually developed a multi-user platform called Normcore. And they actually, as a team, use Half Plus Half to have team meetings. It's a game, but you can have multiplayer interactions.
We do have another question. The question is for the general. So we're wondering if there's anyone who's used augmented reality yet for any technical collaboration.
Yeah, I can't really speak to that, so I'd love to hear if anyone in the audience has used that, whether it's headset AR or mobile AR.
It's very challenging because a lot of the AR technology is, it's not at the same place as VR in terms of market penetration, in terms of the number of people that have the technology. So if you're looking at something like, I just was talking about Spatial.io, which is an AR collaboration tool that works on the HoloLens, the Magic Leap, I imagine soon the Nreal Light. It actually also works on the Oculus Quest, and they must use pass-through somehow to enable that. But yeah, AR is a tricky one because not so many people have the devices, right? Like, try and find a HoloLens 2 right now. You know, like, we had a crazy challenge just getting a Magic Leap into Canada, right? And so they're very hard devices to get your hands on, and I don't think that the collaboration technology is as mature on the AR side as it is on the VR side.
Hey, this is Brad with ICE. We use AR for technical communication, or at least we have tried it several times. One of the biggest challenges is just the user experience, the point of view and what you can see is severely limited even in the very best AR headsets. And so quite often you're turning your head in unnatural ways to try and look at specific things. It becomes very fatiguing over time. You have to move in unnatural ways. You lose, kind of like perception inside of it. And so we've been able to effectively use it to demonstrate things, but it's very, very difficult to have the objects that we need to actually show up and create the kind of experience that would lend itself to somebody being in there for, any length of time to actually technically collaborate on something of significance.
Awesome. Well, thanks for that, Tyler and Bradley. Any other questions? I see that there are quite a few. And one thing I'll just mention, we are getting close to the end of the Q&A session. There may be about 15 minutes or so at the end for us to address some of these questions that are in the chat. For any questions that are not available to get addressed, what I think we'll do is we'll kind of collate them, and maybe we can get a bit of a kind of a consensus from everyone who participated about some ideas here. So we'll send these questions out to everybody through email, and if you would like to provide knowledge to the community, respond with the questions that you have answers to or some thoughts to, and then we'll create kind of a summary of all the answers that have come in from everybody, because I do want to make sure that we have a chance to address, because we do have 25 messages in the chat, so there are a lot of questions I know that we will not be able to get to. But Val, do you have another question that we can take a look at?
Yeah, we do have one last question that we'll take, and it's from Eric, a data analyst, and he's wondering if there is a VR connection to Tableau or other data visualization software within VR currently.
I don't know specifically to Tableau, but there is a company, and off the top of my head, I don't remember what the name is, but I'll look through my search history where they've created a platform for data visualization within VR. So I'll share that with the community, but I wonder if there's someone on the call here who may have some information about either Tableau or about data viz in general within VR.
Oh, Rob has posted a link within the chat. So Eric, if you want to go check that out, I think that will be of help to you.
Great, thanks guys, I'll check that out.
I love this. I love the community that we are starting to create here in Alberta, and we'll be talking about that in a few minutes here. But thanks for posting that link to respond to that question. And one of the things that I've noticed within the VR AR industry, and probably others, but really especially in this industry, is that people are really willing to be supportive, to help, to guide, to mentor. Last year, we put on a series of VR book clubs where we looked at various books from authors such as Charlie Fink or Blake Harris, which if you haven't read History of the Future by Blake Harris, you really need to. It talks about basically the origin of Oculus and some of the stories behind that. But we actually had these authors like Charlie Fink and Blake join us in VR and offer some of their time and insights over and above what was in the book. So the industry is really supportive, and that's hopefully what we're going to be able to develop here in Alberta. I think my clock might be a little bit slow. Val, are we at 5 o'clock now?
Yeah, we're at 5:02.
Awesome. So I'm just going to switch gears here and load up the slide deck. We're going to go into the official kind of program. And like I say, any questions that didn't get addressed, we will work on ways of trying to address those through the community here. So just bear with me one sec here. Using the controllers with a laser pointer attack as a mouse is not there we go. Okay, and all right. Okay, so we're going to go ahead into the official program. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the VR AR Association in general, and then what we're trying to accomplish here in Alberta. Then we'll have Sean DeWitt from Alberta Innovates offer a few words, a message here to us, and then we're going to kick it off into our guest speakers shortly thereafter. So the VR AR Association is a global association with over 55 chapters around the world. And in Canada, there are just 4. So there's one in Vancouver, which is kind of like the hot shot in Canada and probably the world. We got one in Alberta, and we got one in Montreal and one in Toronto. And so there's really a lot of benefits to being members of this association, things like participating on committees, which I'll talk about briefly, accessing trade reports, being able to speak at events, connecting through various methods like the Slack channel and whatnot. So as you can see here on this slide deck, it talks about the association really has a global reach with local needs. And I'll talk briefly about the chapter in a minute, but that's really what we're trying to accomplish is while we're trying to be able to connect industries with companies around the world and potential clients and all those opportunities, we also are realizing that we really need to focus on what do companies in Alberta need to be able to develop, to be able to flourish. And so we really have that global reach with the local needs. So here's just an example of some of the committees that are available to participate on. So I work at Lethbridge College as well, and so I participate on the training committee as well as the education committee, and had a number of opportunities for us to contribute to white papers and guides that the association produced, which gave further exposure to the work that we're doing at Lethbridge College. But we've got things like trades and tourism and retail and aeronautics and a whole bunch more. So it's a chance for you to not just help drive the direction, but also to connect with people, because the people who are on these committees are often in those industries. And so if you are in, let's say, a aerospace or a oil and gas organization, being able to connect with people who work in that space in XR is a huge benefit. And so that's one of the things that I've noticed about being able to be on these committees, is being able to not just contribute ideas, but to get ideas back, to solicit help from people who have maybe walked that walk that you're trying to do in your organization. One of the other things that is really an amazing opportunity, and this year has provided a unique opportunity. So each year, the VR AR Association puts on 2 global summits, one in Vancouver, which I've been fortunate enough to attend for the last 2 years. And last year, they put on the first one in Europe, in Lisbon. And it was going to happen again this year in Lisbon, but things have changed. And so it's now a completely online event. And what's really great about this is the event is 100% free. Obviously, there are premium ticket prices that will provide you one-on-one networking with speakers and sponsors. But if you want to just sit and listen and consume some information, 100% free. So I'll leave the screen on the screen for a sec here. VRARGlobalSummit.com if you want to sign up for free. It starts June 1st to 3rd. They're anticipating over 10,000 attendees because it is a free event with some pretty large speakers in the VR AR space. Here's Charlie Fink here. He's been a speaker at the event for the last few years here. So another great opportunity to participate. And as a member of the association, there are additional benefits. So you get discounts to the tickets, as you'll see when you go out to buy or to get your free ticket. But you also get to speak. So at Lethbridge College, I'll be actually speaking at this summit, talking about how we've been able to pivot some of our education technology using VR, primarily with emerging realities, but other events that we put on. And so as a member, I'm afforded that opportunity here. But if you're not a member, you still can attend, and it's a great opportunity to learn and from insights from experts in the field. So bring it a little bit more local. The VRA Association in Alberta, the chapter, has been around for a couple of years here. And for the last year, we've been really trying to formalize some activity, which we're going to talk about some of the stuff that we've worked on, and then some of the stuff that we want to work on, and really trying to focus on growing the association in Alberta, but most importantly, growing the ecosystem, supporting industry, whether that's through promotion or connecting or those kind of things. So as I mentioned before, I was going to talk a little bit about our board. So I'm the president of the chapter, and we've got Clint Dietz, who is on the call with us today, who is the vice president. We got Val DeFore, who's our amazing moderator. She's our communications and marketing chair. We got David Dukakis, who is our membership chair. And so just for your reference, I'm in Lethbridge, Clint is in Edmonton, Val is in Edmonton, David is in Calgary, and we've got Lynn, who is our policy support person, who's also on the call as well and helping moderate the chat, and she's in Calgary as well. So we got a pretty good cross-section representation geographically of the province here, and we're all really committed to seeing the organizations in Alberta grow, be successful, and really demonstrate the potential that this technology and this medium has for organizations. So as a chapter, and I'm not sure if you'll be able to read this, I will make this slide deck available if it's not quite legible because of the VR to video translation. But we're really wanting to empower organizations within Alberta. We want to ignite the spatial computing transformation, so really raise awareness of the potential, right? Get past that friction moment that people are experiencing with getting the headsets on and getting people to really see the potential. We want to be able to connect the local needs of companies in Alberta with the global opportunities around the world. We want to be able to showcase and highlight and bring Alberta technology to the world. And again, whether that's through promotion, showcasing, we'll talk about some of those things that we have planned for the future. And finally, we want to be able to foster a supportive and collaborative environment. We want to, even though Alberta is small in the sense of the industry when you compare it to like San Francisco or Vancouver, we really want to be able to have us be able to work together, whether that's sharing ideas or sharing opportunities or helping each other out, even if it's just helping solve problems. And I think this event that we're putting on is an indicator of what is potential. And so I really hope that we can really help that collaboration grow and help us all be successful. One of the things that we've done is we've introduced a Slack channel. And so I'll leave this slide on the deck for a few minutes here. But like I said, we will be sharing the slide deck with everybody. The Slack channel is free, whether you're a member of the association or not, doesn't matter. Because again, we have two mandates. Obviously, we'll talk about the benefits of being able to be a member and how it can support us, but we want to see the organization successful. So if you want to, even if you're not at a VR company or an AR company, but you just have an interest and a passion for the technology and the medium, join the Slack channel, share in the conversation, provide some insights, and learn together. So this is a screenshot of our Slack channel with some of the conversations. One of the things that we're most proud about is being able to partner and talk and support Alberta Innovates as they want to roll out a first of its kind research and grant program called XR Head, which stands for the Extended Reality Health or Economic Development Program. And I think Sean might allude to this a little bit in his presentation or his talk, but it was a really great opportunity where we were to help promote, communicate, and get the word out of this initiative, and then look at connecting the Alberta Innovates to experts outside of Alberta to help in the evaluation of the projects. And so I'm really proud that we were able to be, even if it's just a small support to Alberta Innovates to help this idea come to fruition. And it's quite amazing. If you Google XR Head Alberta Innovates, you'll be able to find a page that talks about the program, the companies and the organizations which were awarded, a brief description of the projects. It's pretty exciting that there's that commitment, both financially, but also just as a concept from Alberta Innovates to see the growth of XR technology within Alberta. And so this is something that we're happy that we were able to support. So talking about where we want to go and some of the things that we have in mind, we have a bit of a roadmap of what we want to be able to accomplish. And the first thing is really having more events. Events like this that are in Zoom, but also events that are in virtual reality. We want to be able to walk the talk and demonstrate to people the presence, the engagement that can happen when we're in a space together, as opposed to in Zoom. But also when we're allowed, when restrictions are lifted, we are definitely planning to have a large in-person event in Alberta to demonstrate and showcase the technology and the companies in Alberta. We want to be able to, like I've talked about before, be able to promote and showcase. We want to be able to find the stories of amazing technologies being developed in Alberta. For example, I See What You See out of Calgary uses AR technology to support customer service. We want to be able to find examples of these stories and showcase them in various platforms and at events, whether it's at the VR AR Global Summit or through our social channels, through our newsletter, to really, again, bring the technology that is being created and developed in Alberta to the world and to the rest of Alberta for that matter. We want to be able to create and help develop support programs similar to XR Head with Alberta Innovates. We have a plan to connect with and develop relationships with other technology organizations such as AMI and the Alberta Blockchain Consortium and others to help find opportunities to work together on projects and to support our industries, because we're all in some form or fashion emerging technologies and technology clusters that we really want to all see be successful. And finally, on our roadmap is we want to be able to help connect businesses, whether that's a business that has a skill set need that needs to get filled quickly for a project, or whether it's about connecting a business to a service offering. So for example, a person that one of my contacts in Alberta is looking to be able to rent some VR headsets for an event that they want to put on. So looking at trying to find ways to connect problems to solutions, whatever those problems and solutions might be. So that's all that I've got for our formal presentation here. I think we've got a couple of minutes. So if there is one question that anyone has about, one thing I do want to mention, if you are interested in learning more about the VR AR Association, and particularly the Alberta Chapter, feel free to, you can email me at alberta@thevrara.com, or find me on Twitter at Mike McCready. And we can have some conversations offline about your needs, your interests, and potentially how the VR AR Association can contribute to your success. But we've got time for one question if someone has a question in general about the VR AR Association. Val, do you see if there's any in the chat there?
There currently are not. If anybody would like to ask a question in terms of the VR ARA for Alberta Chapter, feel free to comment it in and I'll ask it for you. If not, make sure that you do eventually join the Slack channel. It's a huge resource in terms of really getting people engaged and people interested in what we're doing here in XR. So that's extended reality, virtual reality, augmented reality here in Alberta. We really do believe that this technology, especially now in a time of social distancing, can really bring us together. So we currently have some questions. Michael Ward would say, hoping to host more social events like the book club. I love the idea of that, but what do you think, Mike? What do you have a book club in VR?
We've done it. Yeah, we've done it for 4 times already, and okay. Definitely it's on our radar to do. And it's a really great opportunity. And every time we've done it, the authors are always willing to join us, and which really makes it special for those who are attending. So keep that in mind. We have a book in mind already, and it's just a matter of kind of logistically getting it to happen, but it is on the radar for sure.
Okay, very cool. There's a note from Tyler here that says, feel free to suggest any books from the book club. So if anybody has any cool books that they want to read, throw that into the chat. There is a question from Rob. He wants to know what the deadline for getting a booth is at the VR conference currently. Do we know?
I don't know the deadline, but I will email, I know the organizer fairly well. I will email her right after the event. And if you want, just provide, the question was in the chat, right, Val?
Yeah, that's correct.
All right, I'll just look in the chat after so I can find out who was wondering, and then I'll share that information with you. I don't think it's passed, but I'm not sure the exact deadline, but I'll find out.
Yeah, cool. Okay, so we currently are at 5:17, so we're supposed to have a message from Alberta Innovates, Mike?
Yeah, Sean, I believe, because he did ask a question earlier. Sean, are you here?
Yeah, is the audio okay for you?
Yeah, it's all good. So I'm just
Great.
going to introduce you quick and then let you do your message. So Sean DeWitt is, I believe, senior business partner at Alberta Innovates in the health innovation area. And if I messed anything up, you can correct me. But he was been one of our point persons in helping them develop the XR Head grant program, and really a huge supporter for XR technology in Alberta. Sean, go ahead and take it away.
And hi, everyone. Thanks for having me. I'll try and keep it fairly brief. Very excited to talk about the future of XR and how Alberta Innovates fits in with the Alberta chapter of VRARA and all of the members. But first, probably take a little step back and just talk about some context about Alberta Innovates so everyone knows where we're coming from in order to understand where we're headed. So as you may or may not know, historically, Alberta Innovates, we've had a number of different incarnations and names. We were the Alberta Heritage Foundation for Medical Research. We were Alberta Innovates Health Solutions. Point being, historically, the focus used to be on very academic and very health system focused research. Certainly no harm in that. And part of that was because we reported to the Ministry of Health at the government of Alberta. In the last couple of years, our reporting has shifted, and that also means that our mandate has shifted. So we as an organization now report to economic development, trade, and I think they added tourism onto that portfolio. Point being that now means we have a dual mandate of economic development along with health outcomes for Albertans. And what that means is that we are now more technology and business focused than we ever have been. Our business model sort of spans the continuum all the way from discovery through development and through use. And, you know, a lot like in comedy, they have the rules of threes. Well, I guess at AI, we like the rules of threes. So our continuum has three pieces, but our strategic deployment to get across that continuum is also three things. We use capital. So as Mike mentioned with XR Head, each project was funded up to $250,000 over 2 years. The second is community. So we try to help develop and support ecosystems. Beyond supporting one-off projects, development of ecosystems and community is key. And then the third is coaching. So we offer all sorts of small and medium-sized businesses with support, everything from advice on financing all the way through to business strategy and kind of everything in between. What we as a health innovation group now are prioritizing is really two big areas, and that's digital and data-enabled technologies, and those are going to be the drivers of those economic and health outcomes that I was talking about. And our particular focus now is on digital health. So as Mike mentioned, you know, late last year, we partnered with the Alberta Chapter of the VRAR Association to design and launch XR Head. And that really was, frankly, our first foray into the space. So we are very new to the space. And, you know, Mike and Clint and the entire Alberta chapter have been absolutely great and patient with us as we found our footing. And as that program moved very quickly, I'm sure you folks can appreciate it was, well, look, things get messy when you move quickly, and but we learned a lot. And frankly, we got off the ground with 7 projects for a total of just over $1.5 million in funding. what that did internally at Alberta Innovates was generate a lot of interest. So while I'm in the health innovation space, there's a lot of interest in Alberta Innovates in using XR in everything from industrial applications all the way through across our different sectors, whether it be energy, oil and gas, you name it. There's interest in XR, and frankly, we in the Health Innovation Group took the leap, and now there's interest in doing something more. So that XR Head program, like I say, we funded 7 projects. That spans all the way from VR training for caregivers for patients with dementia. We have a project that looks at immersive training for paramedics suffering from PTSD who are looking to return to work. We have the development of a radiology workstation based entirely in VR. A lot of other projects. But what we're going to talk about the future is really what do we want to do beyond just that first round of projects. So that's good, but we want to be able to sustain some ecosystem development. So we will be working with the Alberta Chapter to get a line out to its membership, to you folks, to ask what you most need when it comes to ecosystem development as a business, what would help you most. That'll come in the form of everything from financial resources, of course, like a grant program, but also some other resources. So whether it's staff training, who knows? But we want to know what would help the ecosystem and its members the most. We're very excited for what comes next, and I'm very proud and thankful for the work that the Alberta Chapter has put in to shape what tomorrow brings. And with that, I'll put my email in the chat box. Anyone's free to drop me a line anytime. I'm happy to chat. But thanks again, Mike, and I'll turn it back to you.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Sean. And again, thanks for the continued support and partnership and vision, I would say, in developing and running with the XR Head program. And I feel, as has happened in other aspects of the XR industry in Alberta, the XR Head program is going to be a catalyst for more things to come in Alberta in this space. And I'm really excited beyond, as Sean alluded to, beyond health technology. So stay tuned, and we'll keep you informed. We're at the point of the program where we're able to welcome and introduce 2 of our guest speakers who will be sharing some insights on their platform. Both of them are from companies in Alberta, one in Edmonton, one in Calgary, with their platform is really geared towards remote collaboration in different forms. We're going to start off our presentation component by welcoming David, and hopefully I'm not going to say the name incorrectly, Nidohin, who is the president of ScopeAR in Edmonton, Alberta. David, are you on the line? I see you here. Can you hear me?
I can, yeah. Thanks, Mike. Appreciate it.
Awesome. And so if you do have a slide deck that you want to share, I believe you can share the screen with us. So I'll turn it over to you, David. Again, thank you for taking some time to share some insights with us.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, no, thanks. Thanks very much for having me. I appreciate the invitation, being able to talk a little bit about what we're doing in our company, and certainly if there's any questions, happy to answer them here during this forum, or people can connect with us afterwards. So, as Mike said, with ScopeAR, so we're an Edmonton-based company. My name's David Nedowin. I'm one of the founders and the chief customer officer here. And really, you know, my role, as it's evolved over time, I think, Mike, you mentioned I was the president of the company. We've grown quite a bit. My role as the chief customer officer is really working with our industrial customers and my team in just making sure that when they engage with us, when they start using our products, that they have a real plan that they have put in place in terms of what the intent is, what the problem is that they're solving, how they're measuring it, what those metrics are, how we keep on track, and essentially show success throughout the process. So, you know, I get the fun part of the job, which is going and visiting with our customers and seeing what they're doing firsthand and helping them sort of implement best use cases and just make sure that they have a good handle on how to benefit and generate value from our products. So a little background on our company. We started in 2011, so when it says kind of the pioneers of industrial augmented reality, as far as we know, there wasn't really anybody doing it before us. We had an opportunity to work with a large mining company in 2011 or 12 for a trade show, building some work instructions. So essentially putting on a set of glasses that we also made the glasses at the time, putting on a set of glasses that you could look at some equipment and actually go through a set of instructions, replacing paper manuals. So just overlaying nice, rich animated content right onto the equipment. So this was a photo from that. It's actually the black part is the rock drill, so it mines into the walls of the area that they're trying to mine, and it's about 500 pounds. It's extremely heavy, and we built this great project for them. It really caught the attention of, and I guess imagination a little bit at that time, of a lot of organizations, industrial organizations from Boeing and Philips and Toyota, who all engaged with us pretty quickly, asking if they could explore how AR might be something that they actually utilize as they move forward, and trying to figure out exactly where that was going to fit. So we did some really great projects, but it wasn't long before we realized that being a service company wasn't going to be scalable for us. So we focused on the development of products that we now license to a number of the customers that you see on this screen here. So organizations in the life sciences space and medical device space, large industrial manufacturers, energy, CPG manufacturing, and probably the biggest area for us is aerospace and defense. So we've grown quite a bit over the years. We went through a program called Y Combinator in 2015 down in the Silicon Valley. We were able to raise some financing first through there, some seed financing. About a year and a half ago, we did a Series A round of financing. We bought a small company in Israel. So now we have offices in San Francisco, Tel Aviv, Edmonton, and then kind of scattered team members throughout Europe and US. So yeah, we've grown quite a bit. Like I said, we're really focused on kind of a few main key verticals, and industrial equipment for us does include life sciences and the medical device equipment. And really it's all about everything that we focus on, and everything that our customers are struggling with is all about how do you deliver those best practices to a worker when and where they need it. And the current situation, obviously, that we're all dealing with, kind of the new normal, has certainly highlighted that need. Organizations can't travel, they can't send experts anywhere. Manufacturing facilities are operating with skeleton crews, but the reality is they still need to make sure they do their work properly. Everybody is turning to new technologies as kind of less of a nice to have and more of a need to have now, and they're trying to figure out how they're delivering those best practices, and that's really what we're about. And we do that in two different ways. We do that through kind of where our roots started, which was those guided instructions. So somebody putting on a headset, something like HoloLens perhaps, or holding up a handheld device, something like your standard smartphone or tablet. And as much as XR really talks and focuses on the headsets, the reality is for us, most of our customers use handheld devices that still overlay content on the real world. Headsets have a very, very unique place and extremely powerful, huge value when used in the right areas. And so we're agnostic to that, but we deliver kind of expert knowledge in two ways. One, through those guided instructions, just step by step, seeing what to do. And the second one through remote assistance. So all through the same application, but it depends on what you need. Maybe somebody has best practices they just can follow in kind of like their own pace, but they run into a problem. Now they can call an expert and have them help kind of guide that worker through what they're doing. So, simply kind of like FaceTime, but adding annotations and arrows and highlight spheres that all lock to the real world, right? So through predefined instructions or real-time support, and pretty much agnostic to the hardware devices. A lot of our use cases, they vary. So manufacturing is definitely one of the biggest areas for us in terms of, the real pains are making sure that workers who maybe have high turnover rate or are doing very complicated types of equipment manufacturing, or maybe it's fairly unique. So in the case of somebody like Lockheed Martin, who builds the F-35 or NASA space shuttles, it's not like they're building 1,000 space shuttles. They build one at a time, and it's always a little bit different. So a lot of custom orders, how do they make sure they do it properly? training and safety, training in particular, has absolutely exploded for us in the last number of months, because nobody can travel to somebody's site now to learn how to work on their equipment. But what they can do is deliver augmented reality instructions really effectively to have somebody train on their own pace and verify they've gone through the steps properly. Maintenance and field service is really where we started, just showing a worker who's out in the field how to do something properly. So very cool use cases. Today I worked with a company out of Europe called Cleveron. They build these giant canisters that you'll see all over the world that have parcel delivery outside of like Walmarts and things like that. So they've got distributors and customers, and they're very unique pieces of equipment. To support these is really important, but they can't send technicians to do it. So how do they do it? So augmented reality, just show somebody how to do it, right? The kind of secret sauce for us is that we developed a software that we license to our customers that allows them to actually build their instructions themselves. So the software is called WorkLink. It's also the app that you download. So at any app store on whatever device you have, you can download the WorkLink app. But WorkLink Create is an authoring software. So it's the only software today that allows kind of an average computer user to take 3D CAD content and very rapidly create sequences and steps and workflow and animated content and, you know, checklists and highlights and all the things that you want to do to provide those best practices to the workers. And that really is our kind of our secret sauce. It was the first product on the market for this functionality a number of years ago, back in 2015, and we continue to, you know, build on and add to it. So that's you know, for us, that is definitely the differentiator in terms of when you're talking about industrial AR companies. That's what we do very well. Just a couple photos, examples of what customers are doing today. So this is actually a heat shield for the Orion shuttles. And so Lockheed Martin is using augmented reality through our software, through something like the HoloLens, to assemble the Orion shuttle, which is pretty cool. And often in simple tasks, right? In this case, they're simply making sure that somebody puts fasteners on a piece of equipment properly. And that might not sound that complicated, but if they drill the wrong hole, or they put the wrong fastener, or they tighten them in the wrong order to the wrong torque setting, it's a massive amount of rework, extremely expensive. And all the time is taken in terms of understanding what the instructions are telling you and exactly how you apply that to the real world. With augmented reality, you just look at the real world and it's all there, right? So this is actually a photo that's taken from a third person wearing a HoloLens. So they're looking at the Orion shuttle. They would actually have a sequence of different fasteners. First, the blue ones would come up, and those would be set to one torque settings, and then the green ones would come up, and they would be a different torque setting, and so forth. So it makes it extremely easy and very difficult for a worker to make a mistake. Okay, so and it's all about savings, right? Everything is about how much time, how much money can you save, and Lockheed Martin has really figured this out. So in this case, for example, what used to take them, this is cable harnesses and fasteners. It used to take 3 techs 8 shifts to do, is now down to 3 techs for 6 hours. So they've reduced the labor on doing that work by 91%. And it took them just 5.5 hours to actually build the instructions using our WorkLink software. So very cool to see these types of numbers. I mean, the savings on it are absolutely enormous. So changing gears a little bit, today is my first day out of my home office in 2 months. I actually did do a site visit to a customer that's in Nisku. They actually have a shop there it's a company called Agreco. They're a global organization, but they do have a facility in Edmonton. So I did a little visit there. They're building work instructions for training and maintenance. They're using remote support for workers all over the world. This is an actual photo taken from an iPad showing the augmented version of that equipment sitting on the floor and everyone kind of looking around it. You can walk around it. You can go through all the steps to see how you turn it on and how you do maintenance and how you do, servicing and decommissioning. So, it could be real life size. It could be something that you shrink down to see on your table. You can overlay it on the real equipment. You could have somebody come in and help you in real time, right? So this is actually a good example of even a local company that we work with. We also work in medical device space. So a company called Outset Medical, for example, is sort of revolutionizing the space that they're in and just trying to provide better ways, faster ways for medical technicians to be able to service the equipment that they're working on. So they're, the savings that they're seeing in terms of being able to show somebody who's not an expert how to do some work and have them do it effectively and document that through things like photos and session recordings or connecting with an expert is absolutely tremendous. This is a kind of a revolutionary dialysis machine that they use, or that they invented. Yeah, and so you can do that. This is essentially the same equipment going from guided instructions. You can see that nice 3D animated content to now a worker has a problem. How do you show them what to do in real time when they connect with an expert? So simple things like annotations and drawings and arrows. But when the worker moves around, those annotations stay locked to the real world. So again, all about saving money. How do you ensure work is done properly? How do you reduce the need to send an expert to travel and reduce the downtime of that equipment? So that's what we're all about. Organizations like Unilever, they have a factory in Gloucester that was doing some initial projects to just prove the ROI around using augmented reality, not as a innovative technology that they're exploring, but how do we solve real problems? So their ice cream freezers, when somebody does the maintenance tasks incorrectly, huge problems, but they don't necessarily know why. Using augmented reality in just one single task, they're able to reduce the downtime and save $132,000 a month in one factory on one task. And now you scale that to roughly 300 factories that Unilever has, and many ice cream plants being able to replicate that process. So really great use cases. It really is at that point now where organizations are finding out the best practices. They're not trying to do everything all at one time, and that's the key. It's not about Lockheed Martin saying there's thousands of things we could do. It's focusing in on the ones that you can have an impact on, like putting on fasteners and being able to measure that. Okay, just so quick video, I think. Okay, hopefully it isn't too jittery as we're sharing through Zoom, but it gives you an idea. I've talked about remote assistance, I've talked about the work instructions, but this gives you a bit of an example of what that could look like. So, a worker goes into a facility, they're not sure exactly how to fix this piece of equipment. They've tried the standard kind of reboot, right? So now they're calling an expert. Call an expert who's sitting somewhere else. They can answer on their iPad, they can answer on their computer, if they have a PC sitting there, their phone. This worker could also be wearing something like HoloLens if they wanted to. But the idea being that it's agnostic to the hardware. So real simple, annotating, showing the worker what to do, remove those 2 screws. All of that content stays locked to the real world, so the worker knows exactly what they need to do. Instead of just trying to talk them through it, right? And now the expert is loading work instructions. So those can be done at the same time, right? So now it's loaded a set of work instructions, replacing the paper manual, just showing, the animated content, 3D models. This is what you need to do. So, really great. Instead of like handing them a set of paper instructions that could be sitting there and trying to explain that, just, the visual cues on that are, it's pretty hard to make a mistake. Okay, replaces that card, gives a check mark, takes a photo, captures the video, stores it into the content management system, and you ensure that the work is done correctly. So as an organization, we're all about kind of that cycle of expert knowledge, right? Creating content, sharing it with the workforce, measuring that work was done correctly, and then if need be, repurposing it. It really is about that cycle of expert knowledge for us. And I think that's probably right on the 20 minutes. I think it hit 5:40 as I finished up here. So thank you very much for allowing me just to share a little bit about what we're doing at Scope. If anybody has any questions, obviously I'm happy to answer them, stay around for a while. But if you want to connect with me afterwards, certainly send me an email, david@scopear.com. Thanks again, Mike.
Awesome. Thank you so much, David, and for, again, taking some time. So I think let's go ahead and let's answer like 1, maybe 2 questions, depending on how long the answers are. I did see that there were, if that's okay with you, David.
Yeah, of course.
I did see that there were a few questions about, would you be able to kind of go through the chat and see which ones, just time
sure.
for 1 or 2?
I could help out with that. So the latest 2 questions that we had was, what differentiates ScopeAR from something like Vuforia?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I would say that in the kind of the space that we're in, there's probably three main companies that are doing these types of things, of both remote assistance, work instructions, focusing on industrial customers. Probably two that are sort of leading the charge. So that's us and V4A, that's owned by PTC. There is a third one out of Germany as well. They're pretty good too. A little bit behind, I think, or a little bit later into the game than the two of us. There's a couple main differences from us and Euphoria. Both of us have the ability to have remote assistance. They have a product called Chalk. They have a Euphoria 3D Studio. We have WorkLink. A couple big differences though. One is that our work instructions and remote assistance, from a user perspective, are in a single application. So you can do work instructions and also have somebody have remote assistance in that. The Euphoria has two separate products, completely unrelated. They don't work together. So both products, but WorkLink is the only one that has them together. The other biggest factor, I would say, well, there's two more. One is that a lot of the customers that we focus on are really concerned about security, privacy. When we work with organizations like Lockheed Martin, Honeywell, for example, everything needs to be on-prem and secure, and we do offer that. We do support both cloud hosting and on-prem. Euphoria does not. So that's the reason why they're sort of a non-starter for a lot of organizations. And frankly, the authoring side of those work instructions, you need to have some coding background with Euphoria. If you're going to create all of that content, build work instructions, workflow steps, you need to definitely have a little bit more advanced background in some programming knowledge, whereas in WorkLink it's simply drag and drop. Pretty much there's not a single person here that couldn't do it today. So those are our differentiators. We're definitely, they're our main competitor without a question, but that's when we go head to head, and we love going head to head with them. That's why we win.
Awesome. Thanks for that question and the answer. Let's ask one more question for David. Val, what was the next one that you saw? And then we'll move into our next presentation.
Yeah, sure thing. So the question is, do you have to write the instructions for the specific devices, or can it be put on a tablet and a HoloLens without reworking it?
Yeah, great question. When you author the instructions, it is available on any operating system. So it can be on your iOS, your Android, your Windows, your HoloLens. There are some considerations if you're going to be using a HoloLens and just a little bit around the user interface, but you do author one project and it's available on multiple devices.
Awesome. Again, thanks a lot, David, for sharing that. I knew about your WorkLink platform. I've been following you guys for a little while, but I learned some new things about what you guys are doing. And so keep up the great work and representing both XR and Alberta in the world. So thanks again.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mike, and look forward to talking again soon. Maybe get your hands on WorkLink so you can be, doing some work there right in Lethbridge.
That'd be awesome. All right. Well, we got another great presentation from an Alberta-based company. This one, oh dear, I'm having a issue with VR here. Give me one sec.
Hand Mike the bucket.
Okay. Yeah. Hold 1 second here. I think hold on.
Nothing is as funny as when something goes wrong in VR and then the hands crinkle up.
It's like the avatar is fighting himself. Good stuff.
It reminds me of a moment during the days of Microsoft promoting Kinect on stage, where the head of their Kinect program came out and decided to show off the technology by doing some sort of karate kick on stage, and his avatar went absolutely ballistic. Not a good look.
Didn't Tesla have something recent that it did too, where it went to kick in a supposedly bulletproof window or something similar, and then completely shattered it?
That's right. On their Cybertruck, he threw
steel balls.
Cannonball or steel ball. Yeah.
That's what it was. Yep. I mean, that's something to be said though about the tech and innovation too, right? Is that we kind of love the messy bits and the crazy bits. We're all here to see what works and see what doesn't. So.
Yeah, we are for all of us, in some form or fashion, we are pioneers in this industry. Some of us just further along. I don't know what was going on with my VR experience with Spaces VR, but like Bradley said, I almost threw up. It was really jittery. So I just jumped out of VR for a few moments here, and maybe when Brad starts his presentation, I'll jump back in and see if it's any better here. So we're pleased to welcome our next presenter from Ice Edge Business Solutions out of Calgary. Bradley Drebbett is the Director of Client Experience at Ice Edge, and he's going to be talking about their platform, which is also another collaboration platform through various technologies. So again, thanks for having some time to talk with us, Brad, and I'll turn it over to you.
Yeah, thanks, Mike. Really excited. I will definitely challenge David that anybody in this room can write those instructions. I'm sure I could find a way to screw that up, but we could look at that later on. Speaking of VR horrendous stories, there are definitely some from the early days, and I'll show you some super old pictures in this presentation here, but I do remember really early on, we were at a show, and we were set up at a booth, and we were trying to convince people to come over and try it. And so we thought, well, the only way to do that is to like honeypot them. So somebody's got to wear this thing and like show them how great it is. And so the CTO was in there, and he was just going like, oh, wow, this is incredible. Oh man, I love it. And after about 2 hours, he came over and he took the headset off. He's just got these beads of sweat just dripping down his face. And he's like, one of you has to do this. I can't do it anymore. And me and the guys withdrew. We were like, no thanks. Nope. We're not getting paid enough for that. So so remote collaboration using ICE Reality. My name is Brad Drebbett. I'm the Director of ICE Client Experience for Dirt Environmental Solutions, and I'll talk a bit about that because that's actually our parent company headquartered in Calgary. That's a picture of me on the left there testing out our mobile application. I've got an iPad strapped to my chest. It gets super hot, and then a phone that I'm using as well to just try and add more devices in for some early load testing. And then on the right here, you see all of our ice cubes hanging out. We couldn't do it without them. That was at our last kind of corporate event when we could all still get on airplanes. So just by way of kind of setting the stage here, Dirt Environmental Solutions is a Calgary-based company. They're an integrated, prefabricated, modular construction company. They focus in several verticals: healthcare, commercial construction, like offices, education. And their model really is custom is standard. And so when we talk about ICE, we talk about Dirt. ICE is a visual sales and manufacturing software that enables real-time design and specification of a client's products like Dirt and several others. And in our kind of history, our origin story, which I don't have time to get into today, there really wouldn't be an ICE if there wasn't a Dirt and the methodology that they have towards offering custom solutions. And there wouldn't, we wouldn't be able to enable something like Dirt without ICE. Just because of the incredibly complicated nature of what they build and the customizations that they offer. What I usually do when I go out and I talk to people, we usually target people who have some type of solution, whether it's a coffin or it's a data center, and they do some design and they do some manufacturing. And I showed them this slide here, which is like the traditional order flow. And depending on who you are in this order flow, you have animosity, I guarantee you, to at least one of these groups. But usually there's somebody that goes out, they sell something to somebody. They might not know that much about the thing they're selling, but they know that at the end of it, there's a commission check. Then they've got to hand that off, and somebody's got to estimate what they've just sold, how much they have to sell it for, or how much it's going to cost them to do that. And then once that's done, they got to go and probably contact an engineer just to confirm that whatever they've promised and done the estimation activity for, they can deliver. And this is where the engineer will likely look at them and say, no, what you're doing here isn't safe. We're going to kill people and get sued. So we should over-engineer this a bit and add a little bit more in, and then they have to go back to the client, and the client has to, redo the design, and now they've got to re-estimate it again and hope that, they're close or that they get more money to do this project. And all of these, steps that have to happen have wait states in them because the estimators, aren't just waiting for work. They, usually throw that job on a pile and get to it in a couple of days. And And all of this has to happen before they can ever get to, manufacturing and building anything. And this is almost universal for everybody. And so everybody's trying to improve their speed to market. They're trying to improve their responsiveness to clients, because that's who ultimately suffers at the end of this. When you say, hey, you've made a change, wait 3 days, I'll get back to you with what that's going to cost. I'll let you know, I'll confirm with our engineers that we can actually build or offer this product that we talked about today. So the idea with ICE was really, if you could take those 4 steps, the sales, order, engineering, and manufacturing, condense those into a single step that could be done in real time with the client and in collaboration with the other stakeholders, you could really improve things like your speed to market, you could reduce your deficiencies, you could increase the number of sales that you made. And we do that by introducing several elements to it. So ICE is an intelligent configurator, which means that it understands the product that you're specifying. And so as you're designing it, let's say you're going to draw a wall out as a simple example, you can draw that wall. And ICE will tell you exactly how it would construct that wall optimally. And it will give you options that you can change. But for the most part, you don't actually need to know anything about how that wall is constructed or how that car is made or how that data center works. Because you have these intelligent configurations that you can lean on. And this really enables us to take the experience to the client, and they can work in real time with those clients on their needs, knowing that the software won't let them actually design or specify something they can't build or offer. The software will also do estimation or costing right on the fly, so it will produce a quote of the exact cost of these items with margins that you maybe want to include. It can also produce a bill of material, so all of the items that will go into constructing this element. It can produce the data for the machining code that you're going to use to actually manufacture it. And for the client, it can also produce things like immediate 3D fly-throughs, real-time renderings in under a minute. And then the part that we're going to kind of talk about today that's highlighted in red here is real-time integrated virtual reality experiences and viewer experiences. We created ICE Reality as a platform because we really saw 3 trends. And you see these a lot now kind of with COVID, but these have been going on for a really long time that we've seen. And the remote collaboration, the adoption of VR, AR, and virtualization. And so what I mean by those things is that right now you've got a lot of people that are working from their homes. They're, for various reasons. The primary one now is safety, but for a long time, people have been interested in this, from an employee flexibility standpoint, from the point of view of being able to access global talent. You might have offices located in different areas for speed to market, to be able to be on site or on the ground. And you might have, be wanting to decouple yourself from physical assets that you have, like your buildings that everybody's really worried about getting back into. And people have been doing this for a really long time. And if you come from an industry where you are configuring things or you are building things that are custom, like offices or hospitals or data centers or trucks, you need some way to collaborate with each other socially so that you can still achieve the expertise of the collective group. We'll also having a little bit of fun. We'll also actually knowing what it is that you're building and ordering and knowing that you can produce it and for what amount of money it's going to take to build that. We also see the growth of VR, AR. Obviously, everybody on this call believes that. Certainly, a decade ago, we were seeing like massive amounts of money being poured in to VR, AR. Some people will tell you, I've heard or I've read that like the industry has slowed a little bit. I don't know if overall investment has slowed at all. I do know that early on, we never really got the enterprise adoption that everybody was really hoping for, and a lot of that was due to the really poor technology, like we were kind of talking about. It wasn't really adequate for an enterprise level. In fact, it was so bad that at one point in time, we were giving out shirts like this that just said like, "You survived, congratulations." I don't know where this guy is right now. He might be dead. But he was obviously an early adopter, testing this out at shows that we went to. But we have also seen a desire for immersive experiences. So people are looking to differentiate themselves. They're looking to create a customer-centric experience, and they're starting to turn towards immersive environments and experiences to be able to do that, especially now, because if you can offer enhanced capabilities and better hardware, right now we're in a state where we're trying to kind of replace physical interactions with virtual interactions, which really leads us to that third trend, which is virtualizing everything. And so, since late February, there's been a big push, obviously, to transition from physical to virtual interactions. And at its worst, what you see is people who don't have an experience in the industry are thinking, okay, how can I transition from the physical thing I did to a virtual version of that? I used to walk people through my factory. How can I walk people through my factory now and achieve that same experience? And really what we should be doing, and what we've been striving to do with Ice Reality, is stretch the conception of what is actually possible virtually, right? So the idea is that these VR and AR technologies, especially in our industry, are opening up new experiences that really are only possible in a virtual context. And we come from an area where people do a lot of mock-ups. They're building, buildings. They're, building out floors of buildings. They're in a situation where they're going to pay a lot of money to look at a 2D drawing or a 3D rendering of a space, and they won't know what it feels like, what it functions like, until they actually get into that space, and it's too late. So some of the VR AR technologies really let us expand beyond what we could do physically. And this is David and I. You can't see us. We're like strapped with duct tape to the very tip of this rocket here, but that's essentially COVID-19 just blasting all of these trends into the stratosphere, because all of these things have been exacerbated, with these trends. But I think for us, we've been working on Ice Reality for 3 years, because we've seen these trends coming for a really, really long time. One of the interesting things coming off, this pandemic is going to be seeing, how successful are we going to be strapping a device to somebody's face in the future, in this world? And also, will there be a return to work as it was, or will these types of trends, remote work, be the new normal? So the Ice Reality platform then is a virtual social platform for one or many users. And so, by way of example here, here's us touring some people through, and these are really old photos way back in the day. We used to strap everything into a backpack. We've always been really concerned with having mobility. And so, back in the day, the headset, you would plug those guys into the computer and you'd be stuck there. If you were, really trying to hurt yourself, you would try and navigate using a controller or a 3D mouse or something, because that was puke city. But we used to let people walk on their own. And it was really isolating experience for a really long time. And so we always worked in collaborations. We have design firms where they have offices in Los Angeles and Singapore and New York, and they're trying to collaborate on a franchise project and leverage expertise, that's located on the East Coast and the West Coast, and talk to each other. And for that, VR, it can be a very isolating experience in this sense. And so on the left-hand side here, you actually see me, I'm talking to a guy about the experience he's having, walking him through a file. And then we progressed over on the far right-hand side here. We got smart and we put up these 2 screens. And what we realized was those screens enabled people to talk to each other. They could see what this person was experiencing, and they would be able to share thoughts and ideas about it and have a conversation. And so since its very inception for us, any type of VR to be successful, in an enterprise setting has been about collaboration. Here's a video of our boy Ryan here. He's plugged in. This is an X-Stall, and he's doing a really high fidelity example. And so he's in this isolating experience. His neck is probably very sore at this point in time from the front load of that headset. But he's actually sacrificing his mobility for a higher fidelity rendering. So we still do some of this type of work where you have somebody that's, choosing to do design work at a higher fidelity, and they're willing to sacrifice mobility because they would be at their computer anyways. Here's another guy, Tyler. He works on our dev team. Tyler here, this is a Quest. We're streaming telemetry from the cloud over to this headset. He's highlighting, kind of teleporting through a file while also streaming what he sees. So this is incredibly effective when you go to trade shows or when you have people that aren't very comfortable putting on a headset. They can experience, non-immersively what this person is seeing and still be able to get the benefits of understanding when they're talking about, hey, look at where the Purell is on this wall. That's going to be a problem. The egress on the doors, maybe even the color schemes that have been chosen here. This is an example of many people. So you have 4 people here. They're actually looking at window treatments. The irony is there's a window just to the left of them they could never possibly do this exercise with. And they're actually assessing the transparency of those objects. And so they're being toured by this guy in the purple shirt here at the back. He's walking them through, and they're in real time, they're making the changes to their file. They're changing the type of treatment they have and the transparency of it, using the controls inside of of ice. So they're in an ice file making real-time edits together, and everybody sees that as it's being rendered out. Here's another example. These guys build data centers. We actually took this on the road, so we packed all of this equipment up, somehow managed to cross the border, and we're doing this show down there. And so he's touring them through a data center. This guy in the black shirt, his mind is just melting right now as he tours through and opens doors and begins to view what is a proposed design center. Talking about training, they also use this for training because they have a center they send everybody to where they begin to talk about their product. And one of the things they can now do using this technology is they can have people remotely join this experience and they will tour them through it and show them all the things they would normally get if they were to travel out to their Illinois-based facility. Ice reality. So what we have is ice reality. You create an experience. So you're using ice. You're an ice user. You know what you're doing. You can open up an experience for other people to connect to it. The people that are connecting to it, they can join the experience from the same physical location or from anywhere in the world, and they can see, hear, speak to, and edit the ice file. So for all intent and purposes, they're picking whatever compatible device they happen to have, whether it's a phone or a headset or a desktop PC, and they're able to join, immersively in virtual reality or through a mobile 3D viewer or a desktop 3D viewer to participate in design sessions and presentations and whatnot with each other. So here's an example of this video. This is kind of how it works. Somebody might get an email. It's got a link in it for them to come check something out. They show up. Yeah, this guy's like, wow, that's amazing, and it is. And they go through and they can make these real-time changes to the file, and they can experience these edits, whether it's 2 people or it's 10 people or 15 people or 100 people. Here's an example of on-site. These 2 guys from the Calgary City Police Department. They're wandering through a building we were producing for them. They're being toured by Jenna here in the mask as they navigate this space. What's really cool about this is that police forces around the world are beginning to adopt virtual reality technologies for their own training purposes and like room clearing situations. And so here they are, they're using it to actually assess the building that they're going to go into, and they can see each other as they walk around and begin to talk about this building that they're having and how it's going to meet their needs and purposes. Of course, you got to do it right, otherwise they'll haul you away if they don't like the price. Here's an example of a remote. So in this case here, Drew on the left is in Chicago. I am actually that super svelte human avatar on the right-hand side. I'm fully articulating. What you're seeing is what we call magic cam. So it's what Drew sees essentially from his headset. Those colored objects on the desk, those are swatches. And so we're actually going through and we're like picking the best possible colors for this wall, collaborating in real time across sites. So for some of our clients, they'll end up having multiple sites that allow for motion capture. And so they can actually couple like fully articulating human avatar motions for one or more people in a space to add an extra element of realism. Drew here is in a backpack that we're using to actually render the geometry, and he's got on a headset, and so he only appears as an ice cream cone. This is an example of the mobile application. So we got somebody in New York and somebody in Chicago. They've set up an experience on this laptop, and they're able to join in and see each other. This is what their view looks like. It's a fully digital environment, so it's essentially a 3D viewer, but they can see each other, talk to each other. And to David's point, sometimes you don't have a headset. All you have is a phone. That's pretty ubiquitous. And so we also see a lot of people are using non-immersive experiences using phones and tablets. Another reason that people really like this type of technology is a lot of people are either really scared from the early days when we put them through some horrendous stuff in a headset and they don't want to go back and be sick, or they have a genuine fear of the immersion. It doesn't make them feel well. They're the small percentage. Sometimes they don't want to mess their hair up, and so they'll actually prefer using this type of non-immersive experience. Here's a couple of guys. This is from Dubai. This is at Arab Health. They do have on the HoloLens 1 here, and they're actually being toured by myself. I'm in Calgary, and I'm touring them through a facility. So we meet virtually. They see my human fully articulating avatar. I fake shake their hands. They love that gimmick. And then I take them on a tour of this space together, and we can make changes in real time based on their feedback to us. Never having met, the only downside to this type of interaction is that I have to stay up and work in the wee hours of the night because we haven't mastered the time zone transition yet. These two guys here are actually looking at the interiors of the wall, so they're actually electrical contractors, and they're far more concerned about what's happening inside of the already built space. So they're using the HoloLenses here to actually look at how we've run in the med gassing and electrical inside the walls. Jen is keeping a close eye on them from behind to make sure they don't run off with our headsets. I don't know that they would get so far though. And they're able to experience it again, being toured by me, somebody that's located on the other side of the world, had never having met them, but we have this pretty realistic social exchange together where they actually come out of it feeling like, I met that guy. So really, Ice Reality represents a new category of experience, right? It's taking remote work, it's taking the emerging technologies that we have, and it's also taking into account those experiences that you can virtualize way better than you can handle in the physical world. And if you don't think that's true, I would encourage you to Google like cardboard hospitals. I don't know if people know this, but in a lot of cases when they build hospitals, because they don't want to screw it up, they'll build them entirely out of cardboard first, including the ORs. This gives them a sense of flow function inside of the space. Doctors obviously aren't architects or designers. Thank God they figured out that they could tape these things to the walls. That lets them in real time adjust where the med gases are going to run. So obviously this activity is far better off when you can do this inside of a virtual environment and actually make real-time changes and discuss how that impacts things like your price, your lead time, how it impacts maybe other elements of your space. This is an office, the same thing. They did this whole thing in cardboard. To be honest with you, I would have been tempted to just leave it all in cardboard at the end of it once you've gone to this kind of trouble. Here they've set out the whole floor layout plan. Here's an example of something we did. So this is at a ballroom. This is like 7,500 square feet. I can't remember, maybe James can throw it in the chat. He's in the call here. And we actually toured an entire floor in this space here. Here's a couple of guys we're setting up. So we've got 8 backpacks. We actually are only limited by the number of pieces of equipment we could get to site here. And people are touring through this space independently. So here we are kind of checking these monitors allow us to see what the headset sees so that we know that somebody can kind of just walk up to the A-frame, put on a backpack and a headset and grab the controllers and take off into their experience. The space was so large that people that would enter this experience and walk around it would often not encounter other groups inside of the space as they toured it. So I would counter that being able to virtually tour through your space, make real-time changes, understand the effects of those changes, it far outweighs doing everything in cardboard and then throwing all of that cardboard out. The other piece to this that really enables it is the VR technology really allows people, maybe they're accountants, maybe they're doctors, people who are not expected to be able to look at something in 2D and 3D and understand the fit and function of that space. VR allows them to actually tour through their spaces. And it's amazing the shift in mindset you'll see when these people actually walk through the data centers or the cars that they're building or whatever they happen to be doing, the ceilings they're constructing, because these people will begin to think more like a designer. They'll all of a sudden tell you, well, what about all the printers I'm going to have over here? Or what about, I was going to have long lines of people for the pizza parties we were going to throw. And is this space really big enough? I was going to have a couch in here and I was going to try and create things. They're all of a sudden thinking about the fit and the form and how they're going to use space. And so being able to see it in VR really changes their mindset. Here's a group of people going through that space here. They're just kind of touring on their own, having a chat, making some changes. We have a lab in Calgary, so this is in our headquarters. We have these located across North America. You see our headsets here. Here we're rendering with the backpacks again and the headsets. People can come by when times were good. They would come by here and they would actually do tours, of groups of 6 to 10 people, probably 4 times a day, and they'd be actually looking at their designs and their files and going through revisions and design meetings and collaborating in real time with the people that they had hired to actually design these spaces for them. So it's absolutely crucial impact. And because with Ice Reality, you're in the Ice file, your file is the order. So you can catch any kind of change or mistake or revision right up until the absolute moment that this goes into manufacturing at absolutely no additional cost. You can also take these on the road. So here's a couple of guys. They've got on the Quest. We took this down to California with us. This was the last trip we took. These guys are touring through a file that they showed up. They were previous clients. They had a proposed design from Caltech. And we actually toured them through 3 stories of their building and answered questions that they had. So there's a lot of benefits that go along with a technology like this. It's a customer-centric experience, allows them to control the solution. It reduces design errors, deficiencies, increases and allows people to communicate socially. You get better buyer confidence, quicker decisions with it. And at the end of it, the most hilarious part is that you'll have these people that have gone in for a design session and they'll be, working collaboratively on some space. And then at the end of it, they'll start talking about where they're going to go for dinner or what they're, well, let's head out for drinks. And they'll kind of forget like, oh, hold on, you're not actually here. It was good while it lasted. So thanks. I might be a minute over. I can't remember the time. If you have questions, I've put all my contact information in there, phone number, email address, our website. And then if you'd like to go and try Ice Reality, it's available free for download from the Apple App Store. So you can just search Ice Reality and download it. We have several experiences up there for you to tour through.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Bradley, for sharing some of your insights and talking about your platform. And I gotta say, I was able to try it. I believe you guys came last year to Emerging Realities, actually twice, and we were able to try your Ice Edge solution, and it was also pretty awesome. I think there are a few questions that might have popped up into the chat here. Now that I'm not in VR, I could take a look at looking at those. I think there is one that came in and it was asking about how quickly this is from Christy Savell, how quickly can you render their design in VR, and do you use a CAD file?
Yeah, so we build catalogs. So we will use CAD assets like 2D and sometimes 3D assets in the catalogs that we build, the customer-specific ones. In terms of speed, it's actually instantaneous. So inside of ICE, if you want to fire up a VR experience, you at the click of a button, it will generate your VR experience for you, opens up your window viewer. If you want to invite other people to join, then you generate a 9-digit code or you send them a QR code to scan, and they can punch that code in and they'll almost instantaneously be put into your file.
Awesome, thanks. And the only other question I see right now is from Michael Ward. He was asking if you guys encounter VR sickness in a lot of your potential clients that you approach.
Yeah, it's very small. I mean, in the early days, we've been doing it for like 6 or 7 years now. In the early days, we definitely did. It was like 50-50. You're going to get somebody that was sick. Now the technology has gotten to be so good and the software is improved that we very rarely get somebody who comes by that will be sick out of the experience. Far more often, they're haunted by their previous experiences. And so we probably have close to 90% adoption when people come to our facility. And we're amazed. One of the incredible things that always shocks me is when we go to conferences, we won't bring any product. Like the clients that we work with won't bring any samples, they won't bring anything. And what they'll do instead is they'll just design on the fly, right? If you want to come by their booth and see their stuff, and it's funny because it's like a big empty booth, you'll put a headset on and they will just start to design on the fly right in front of you, like based on what your interests are. And they'll often go from somebody that would give you 30 seconds if you were going to offer them some type of swag to being in that experience for 15 minutes, asking questions and interacting. So it's an incredible draw for people. They don't seem to have troubles.
Awesome. Well, thanks again, Bradley, for sharing some of your insights here. I'm just going to stop your screen sharing here. So what we're going to do now, and like I said, we've talked about, if there are questions that you have and we weren't able to address them or you think of them later, feel free to post them in the Slack channel. What we're going to do is try to collate all those questions and get the community to help answer those, and then share that back with everybody, either through the email you provided or on the Slack channel. So we're just kind of ready to almost wrap up here. Are there any questions that anyone has for Bradley? I think Sean and David had to leave, or for the community in general, any XR question that anyone has? Feel free to put it in the text chat or just unmute your mic and we can have a few-minute discussion before we wrap up with the door prizes.
I just had one question more for I guess for XR professionals in general on this conversation. As far as like I guess like a mainstream version of AR glasses, like we've got the HoloLens and all those various things, but like how close would, like, just, and it's a general sense, how close would you guys predict us being to I guess AR glasses being as ubiquitous as a cell phone?
Well, from my perspective, I mean, I've kind of stuck to what I've thought from the beginning, is that it'll kind of be generation 3 before we get to the point where they're just, commonly used, easy to use, that they're, right now there's still some challenges. You need to be, you need to be a little patient with them. You need to understand how to use them. HoloLens 2 is pretty good, but there's still some limitations. I think we're probably a generation away from, which maybe in the next 2 to 3 years, from being something that is going to be kind of remembered as that first device that just people have used. It's easy to use from there. But yeah, that's my feeling. But there's a little caveat. Like, it depends on what you're doing too, right? I mean, if you're doing something that is just, you want to have a monocular glass and it's just kind of showing you some information data, kind of like the original Google Glass, which didn't go over very well. I mean, that's a different use case than full AR that's going to overlay content onto the real world. So I think there's different steps and layers to that. But I think we're probably a generation away.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Awesome. So yeah, Rob just posted that Apple's expected to roll out AR glasses in 2023. Given their target market, I think it'll be the year AR hits mainstream. So we'll see. I know there's a lot of talk about that. So, and if anyone hasn't had a chance to, I definitely encourage you to try out Nreal Light's glasses. I mean, they definitely are not that epitome that we're looking for, but it is kind of an interesting application that they've developed here in a form factor.
So just a quick question, Mike, it's Clint. Just a quick question. So for David and Brett, and thank you very much. Superb presentations, unbelievable devotion to this VR, AR technology, digital technology, tremendous individuals, professionals. But the question I guess I got is, in terms of talent, do you have to look far afield? What are you looking for in Alberta? Are you finding it here? Is it costing you additional monies? In other words, where is most of your development occurring? And what can we do to help support, getting the word out there that, we need resources, we need more training, we need more of these types of resources for our burgeoning companies, growing companies?
I don't know, David, you want to answer?
Yeah, sure. I can go first. I mean, we're always looking to build our team. We have been for quite some time. We're looking for great developers. We have all sorts of development skills that we need, from web developers and app developers and Unity developers and QA teams and product marketing and everything else. So I mean, what are we looking for? We're looking for everything. We've also found, I mean, we have a bit of a probably not unlike ICE, but we have like kind of this geographic sort of situation where we have customers all over the world, and we need to balance that with team members that are located in different locations as well. But I mean, it's we're looking for everything, and I think we started at Startup Edmonton just as a bit of background, right? And we've certainly leveraged Alberta Innovates, and we've leveraged all sorts of programs. It's great being Albertan. We've leveraged all sorts of resources to do that. So it's, we've seen this grow to a company now that we've got 30 employees here. It's still our biggest office. But I don't know if that really answers, but we're always looking for good people. Let's just put it that way.
I would say one of the things that we're really looking for is vision. We do a lot of development in Calgary. We also have an office in Salt Lake City. We got lucky a ways back because EA was letting a bunch of really good guys, and we had a couple of people that were already working for us there, and so we ended up getting a bunch of really great staff members from EA. But I think that one of the things that we're looking at, there's lots of talent in Alberta. There's lots of programs here that are growing that talent, especially for virtual reality, augmented reality, XR, whatever you want to call it. And yeah, somebody just put in there, Richard Papp, there's lots of people getting trained at Lethbridge College. There certainly is. I think one of the things that we've always come up against is that you're asking a lot of people. You are like asking them to like strap a device to their face, completely blind them, and take this leap of faith into something they've never done. And so, certainly in our story, right, a lot of people, when we started talking about ice reality, were like, that's insane. Nobody's ever going to want to do that. And even the first couple of times we put people through, I remember the founder at the time was like, this is ridiculous. Nobody's going to do this. And we had a tour come through, and he was there for it, and he saw it happen. And the guy was so amazed at this early iteration of it. He was like, this is the future. And at the time, the founder was like, God damn it, get to work on this, get this finished up. And so I think it takes somebody, in an emerging industry of vision to really kind of, recognize the possibilities, the diverse possibilities that exist, and be able to couple those technologies that are maybe there now, maybe some that aren't, haven't been developed now that need to be developed, to really build out, the future, which is where I see a lot of people adopting this, is for, programs and ideas and things that don't exist yet.